others who are in need. You have to pick some things that you can do, and you need to do those things.
If I could give you a superpower, any superpower, one that you've heard of, flying, x-ray vision, bending steel, or one that you make up on the spot, what superpower would you request?
Power to turn people's hearts towards each other.
You mean on a one-on-one basis or just
Both
people in general?
People in general, right.
More people in general.
Yeah, because I think if people were less selfish and more humble about what they know and what they think is right and wrong. If people were, I have an article on this too, right? If you had more epistemological humility about what you think you know and also what you think is right and wrong, then I think if people had that, we would get along much better than we do. I mean, because a lot of the problems come out of sheer arrogance that we have. You know, if you want to know what's right, just ask me, right?
And if you don't like it, I'll beat it into you.
That's right.
Who are your heroes?
Well, aside from my parents, David McGillner, Rabbi David McGillner, who led that series of discussions when I was 15, is one of my heroes. Another one of my heroes is John F. Kennedy, and to a certain extent Lyndon Johnson before he got involved in Vietnam. I mean, he did what Kennedy could not do in getting the Civil Rights Act passed and the Voting Rights Act passed. And
he had Congress in his pocket, and
exactly
Kennedy did not.
That's right. But I mean, you know, all of his social programs were amazing. I mean, and he really did, you know, things that nobody had ever done before. People who have created cures to diseases, like Jonas Salk, even though I've never met the man, is a hero of mine. The person who discovered penicillin, it's because of him that I'm still alive, because I inherited the weakness in my bronchial tubes from my father's side of the family. My father had a brother who, in this country, got bronchitis and became pneumonia, and he died. I've had bronchitis about 15 times in my life, and I'm still around. So, you know, Fleming or whoever it was that discovered penicillin is a real hero for me.
For the rest of us who have mediocre or subpar parents, how can we as a society help them to become servant leaders?
I think it's in several ways. First, what I was saying before, try to get people to understand that whatever happened in their childhood, now they're adults, and they need to be able to take their adulthood, they need to take their lives in their own hands and to take responsibility for what they're doing now. And you can no longer blame it on what happened in your childhood. That was then, this is now. Do something that really makes you know, that is meaningful, that makes a difference in life. So the first thing is to take, I would say to them, that's then, this is now, take control of your life. Second thing I would say to them is, there are a lot of people your age and older who are really making significant contributions to this society and to world society. Latch on to any of them, right? Including some of your friends who may be doing some kind of service, and just watch them do it and do it with them. It will first of all enhance your friendship, right? Because it's the old Thielen principle that friendship comes out of shared work, right? So if you're doing things together that really matter, as well as things that are just fun, your relationship will be all the richer, and that will be also an entree into a career of serving others for reasons that are yours, not necessarily reasons that your parents would have had. And it's a way of making your life much more meaningful, and also you know, leaving things after you die that you can be proud of.
Is there anything I've neglected to ask you that bears mentioning at this juncture?
Probably not, but the one thing that I would say is that that we Jews inherit a very rich tradition, intellectually and culturally and communally in all kinds of ways. But one of the things that I am absolutely proudest of, in terms of my own Jewish tradition, is the degree to which it insists that we try to make this a better world. And I think that if I were committed to this tradition for no reason other than that, Dayenu, it would be enough.
Thank you so much for taking the time to meet
My
with
pleasure.
me. You're a very interesting and enlightening human being.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for meeting with me tonight, Rabbi. Please tell me your full name, the position you hold, and how you came to hold that position.
I'm Elliot Nelson Dorff. I am a rector and distinguished professor of philosophy at the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. I started there in 1971 because Rabbi David Lieber, who was then the president of the university, asked me to come out after I finished rabbinical school and my doctorate at Columbia.
What does rector mean?
It means very different things in different universities. At the American Jewish University, it means that I'm rabbi of the university. So that means I'm chief ordaining officer for the rabbis for the students in our rabbinical program. I'm also responsible for the kashrut of the kitchen, and I do a lot of interfaith work on behalf of the university.
Please tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you were raised, and your family of origin.
I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and raised there through high school. My father was born in Poland and came to this country when he was 12. My mother was born in Milwaukee. My father was a civil engineer. He got his bachelor's in engineering degree from University of Wisconsin at Madison. His father also built houses, but without a college degree. He did that in Europe, and then he did that later in Milwaukee. And my father actually started by helping my grandfather in that business. My mother went to Marquette University and got a bachelor's there in Latin and Greek, and then she was 2 credits short of a master's as well when I was born, and therefore never finished it. They both grew up in Orthodox congregations. They left it when they got married and joined a conservative congregation. As my father put it, I did not leave Orthodoxy. Orthodoxy left me because it wasn't modern. And he was they were both part of a generation in which the conservative movement actually boomed. In terms of because people just fell into it. In that generation, being Reformed for most of them was too Goyish, and being Orthodox was too Jewish, and they wanted something in between where they could be proudly Jewish, but also very much integrated in American society. My mother kept a kosher home. My parents were not all that observant aside from that until I started getting interested in a lot of this. Later, my father became president of the synagogue. It was a large conservative synagogue, about 1,000 families in Milwaukee. He also became president of Jewish Family and Children's Service there, and he was vice president of the Bureau of Jewish Education. Wow. And chair of the Israel Bonds Drive. He was, and also on the Harbor Commission of the city of Milwaukee. My mother was very active. She was Sisterhood president and Hadassah president and Ort president and all of that. So they were very involved. I think the thing that really turned me on to things Jewish was Camp Ramah, to which they sent me on a half scholarship from the synagogue when I was 12. And
That was here in California.
in Wisconsin. It was actually the very first Ramah built in 1947. But I first started in 1955 when I was 12. In order to go back, you had to be taking at least 6 hours a week of Judaica during the year. So that meant that after my bar mitzvah, I didn't quit my Jewish studies the way that most of my friends did. And that meant that when I was 15, I was still there. And the director of the camp, Rabbi David McGillner, led a series of conversations, I happen to remember, on Monday nights with those of us that were 15 and 16. And he started out by saying, how many of you keep kosher at home and out? And a certain number of people raised their hands. How many of you don't keep kosher at all? And a certain number of people raised their hands. How many of you keep kosher at home but not out, which is what my family did? And he said, as you people, I don't understand, because we were inconsistent.
It's like Israelis.
That's right.
Israelis do that.
And then he was on the attack. I mean, he was basically saying, why would anybody in his or her right mind believe any of the things that Judaism asserts or do any of the things that Judaism would have us do? And he started out with concrete things like kashrut and Shabbat, and then went to more abstract things like revelation and prayer and God. And over the course of the 8 Mondays of that summer, he made it clear to me and to the rest of us that he made it clear to us that you didn't have to turn off your mind to be seriously Jewish. That quite the contrary, here was somebody who was really invested in the Jewish tradition, and he was not only willing but actually eager to ask all of the questions that would turn the whole thing over, turn over the entire apple.
Please list briefly the degrees you hold and the schools you got them from.
I have a Bachelor of Arts from Columbia College, which is at that time it was the undergraduate men's college of Columbia University. Summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, if you want to know that. I have a master's in Hebrew Letters and Rabbinic Ordination from the Jewish Theological Seminary. And then I have a PhD from Columbia in philosophy. And then I have 4 honorary doctorates.
From whom?
Hebrew Union College, Gratz College, American Jewish University, and the Jewish Theological Seminary.
Please tell us what is so important about forgiveness as you teach at the Fuller Theological Seminary.
I was once asked to talk to 5,000 evangelical Christians at the San Diego Convention Center. And it was about something else, but the first question I was asked after that was, do Jews believe in forgiveness? And I said yes, but with us it has to be earned. And you heard 5,000 evangelical Christians go, right, because for one of the real lures for Christians is that you're forgiven even before you sin.
I find that a little problematic.
Yes, I find that very problematic as well. Because within the Jewish tradition, we take forgiveness very seriously, but we also take tshuva very seriously, which is the structure of return. That's literally what the word tshuva means in Hebrew: a return to the proper path and return to the good graces of the community and of God ultimately. In order to do that, one has to, first of all, acknowledge that you've done something wrong. Then you have to show remorse for it and ask for forgiveness from the person. You say that I'm sorry to the person that you've wronged. Then you have to do whatever you can do to restore what you have done, what you have taken away, whether that means restoring money, whether that means restoring a person's reputation, if you have slandered somebody or something on that order. But you do what you can in order to repair the wrong that you've done. And then, according to the tradition, you really have not done all of tshuva until the same kind of situation happens again, and you act differently. because the Jewish tradition really is a tradition that focuses on action.
Aren't there two more requirements? One, that the person forgive you,
Right.
in order for God to forgive you.
Well, the other person, once you have done everything that you can do in this process of tshuva, then the other person is actually obligated to forgive you. And if that person doesn't, then that person's friends are supposed to talk to that person in order to try to convince that person to forgive you once, twice, three times. And ultimately, if the person refuses to do so, even if you have done all of the steps of tshuva, then that person has now committed a sin, because we really do believe in forgiveness when it is warranted.
So would God forgive you on Yom Kippur even if the aggrieved party withholds forgiveness?
Well, the way that the Jewish tradition understands Yom Kippur is that God forgives us on Yom Kippur for the sins that we have done between us and God, not for the sins that we have done between us and other human beings. For that, only other human beings' forgiveness works. And hence the custom for the entire month before Rosh Hashanah and during the 10 days of repentance of asking all of your friends and family for forgiveness, even of things that you may not remember or that they may not remember,